What is happening at my school? My teacher was in the middle of explaining photosynthesis when he stopped mid-sentence and stared at the board like he'd never seen it before. "I'm sorry," he said after a long pause. "What is photosynthesis?" I told my friend Lila when we were in line for lunch, but she was distracted, staring at the cafeteria menu. "Since when do we have sushi?" The cafeteria had a sushi station, a pasta bar, and a full salad setup. None of that had been there the day before. When Lila asked the lunch lady when the menu changed, she just shrugged. I joked that aliens were clearly taking over our school. But then things got weirder. On Friday, 5 girls from the senior class didn't show up. By Monday, they still hadn't come back. When I brought it up in homeroom, half the class looked at me like I was crazy. I pulled up the school directory on my phone to prove it. Their names were gone. All 5 of them erased from the system. Lila and I went to the main office to report it. The secretary pulled up the records and frowned at her computer screen. "I don't see any students by those names," she said. We showed her our phones with old group photos. The girls were right there. She said she'd look into it but seemed more annoyed than concerned. That week, more teachers started acting strange. The Spanish teacher stopped mid-lesson and just stared at her textbook for 5 minutes. The gym teacher forgot what sport we were supposed to be playing. The calculus teacher walked out of class halfway through and didn't come back. Lila thought maybe someone was drugging the staff, and maybe the missing students too. We started paying attention to the teacher's lounge and the water fountains, but we never saw anyone do anything. On Wednesday morning, all the trophies in the display case were different. State championships from years I didn't remember. Names of students I'd never heard of. Awards for sports teams that didn't sound right. I took pictures and compared them to photos I'd taken of the same case last month for the school newspaper. Completely different trophies. Someone had switched them all out. More students stopped showing up. 3 sophomores, 2 juniors, a senior from my English class. I started keeping a list on my phone of everyone who disappeared. By the end of the week, it was up to 15 people. The school website kept changing too. I'd check it one day and the principal's photo would be different. The About Us page would list a different founding year. I took screenshots every time I noticed something new. Lila found old school newspapers in the archive. We spent an afternoon going through them. Articles about events that I didn't remember happening. Photos of assemblies and pep rallies that seemed off. Mentions of clubs and programs that didn't exist anymore. "Someone's rewriting everything," Lila said. "The records, the website, the newspapers. But why?" Thursday afternoon, I was working in the tech booth for the theater when I decided to check the security footage. I wasn't supposed to have access, but I knew the password from helping with school plays. I wanted to see if I could find anything about the missing students. I pulled up footage from the past few weeks and started going through it. The recordings were choppy and glitchy in places. Whole chunks of time seemed to be missing. Other parts looked like they'd been edited, but I couldn't tell how. I found clips of students I recognized walking into the building but never walking out. Teachers entering classrooms, and then the footage would just skip ahead an hour with the room empty. The more I watched, the more wrong it all felt. Not like the footage was fake, but like something had been carefully removed from it. Lila came to the tech booth and I showed her what I'd found. "Someone's deleting parts of the recordings," she said. "Who has access to this system?" I didn't know. Supposedly only the principal and the security company. But clearly someone else had access too. On Friday, I started noticing the same car parked across from the school every morning. A black sedan with tinted windows. It would sit there from 7 a.m. until the first bell and then drive away. I pointed it out to Lila and she took a picture of the license plate. More weird stuff kept happening. Classroom numbers got switched around. Bathroom locations changed floors. My locker combination stopped working, and when I went to the office, they said I'd never been assigned that locker number. I pulled out my phone to show them the locker assignment email from August. The email was gone. I searched my entire inbox. Nothing. Monday morning, Lila found the binders. She texted me to meet her in the library during lunch. She was standing in front of a shelf in the back corner. A whole row of identical black binders with no labels. She pulled one down and opened it. Pages and pages of names. Student names, staff names. Each one had a date next to it and a single word. Replaced. Adjusted. Removed. The 5 girls who disappeared first were all there. Removed, dated from 2 weeks ago. I flipped through more pages. My teacher who forgot photosynthesis. Adjusted. The Spanish teacher. The calculus teacher. Dozens of students I recognized. My hands were shaking as I kept turning pages. Then I saw my own name. Next to it was tomorrow's date, and the word replaced. I stare at my name in the binder with tomorrow's date and the word replaced next to it. My hands shake so badly I almost drop the pages. Lila grabs my arm and whispers that we need to photograph everything right now before someone catches us. We use our phones to capture every page we can. My heart pounds so loud I'm sure the whole library can hear it. I flip through pages as fast as I can while keeping my phone steady enough to get clear photos. Lila works from the other end of the binder, her fingers moving quickly but carefully. Every few seconds, I glance toward the library entrance expecting someone to walk in. The lunch period noise from the hallway sounds far away and muffled. My phone screen shows page after page of names and dates. Some entries go back months. Others are dated for next week. I recognize teachers, students from my classes, people I see in the hallways every day. The word adjusted appears next to most of the staff names. Removed shows up by students who disappeared weeks ago. Replaced is marked next to 15 different names, including mine. Lila stays calm while I'm freaking out. She methodically photographs page after page and uploads them to a private cloud account she creates on the spot. She tells me we need backups of backups, and we should email copies to ourselves from non-school accounts. I follow her lead because I can't think straight. I just keep watching the clock and expecting someone to walk in any second. My fingers fumble with my phone as I try to set up a new email account that isn't connected to the school. The password field keeps rejecting what I type because my hands are shaking too much. Lila finishes her section first and starts helping me with mine, holding the binder steady while I take photos. She creates a shared folder in her cloud account and shows me how to upload files there. The progress bars on our phones move slowly. Each photo takes several seconds to upload. I count 17 more pages we still need to photograph. The lunch bell rings in 10 minutes. We finish photographing the binders, and I immediately check my student portal on my phone to see if anything's changed yet. My locker number is different from this morning. 2 of my classes have been moved to different rooms without any notification. The changes are small but deliberate, like they're testing whether anyone will notice. I show Lila my screen and she checks her own portal. Her schedule looks normal. Nothing changed for her. I screenshot everything on my portal and compare it to screenshots I took yesterday. My locker number was 247 yesterday. Now it shows 189. My third period English was in room 302. Now it says room 215. I pull up the school directory and search for my name. It still shows up, but the grade level next to it is wrong. It says I'm a junior when I'm supposed to be a senior. Lila grabs my phone and zooms in on the screen. She takes her own screenshot of my profile showing the wrong information. After the final bell rings, we go back to the library when it's nearly empty to look at the binders again. That's when Lila spots a tiny camera mounted on the shelf above where the binders were kept. It's angled down at anyone who would open them. My stomach drops because they've been watching us this whole time. The camera is small and black, barely bigger than a button. It's positioned behind some books on the top shelf so you wouldn't see it unless you were looking up. Lila points at it without saying anything. We both stare at it for several seconds. Then we walk away trying to act normal. My legs feel shaky as we head toward the exit. We don't talk until we're outside in the parking lot. Lila asks if I think they saw us taking photos. I don't know. Maybe. Probably. The camera was pointed right at that shelf. We leave school immediately and drive to a coffee shop 3 blocks away to upload everything to Lila's personal cloud drive using their Wi-Fi instead of the school network. Having copies stored completely outside the school system makes me feel slightly less helpless. We sit there for an hour making sure every file transferred correctly while drinking coffee that tastes like cardboard. Lila organizes the photos into folders by date and category. She labels them with codes instead of obvious names. The folder with my replaced entry gets called Tomorrow Project. We both save the cloud login information in our phones under fake contact names. Lila sets up automatic backups that will save new copies every 6 hours. She shows me how to access everything from any device. The coffee shop is busy with people working on laptops and having loud conversations. Nobody pays attention to us. I keep checking over my shoulder anyway. Lila orders a second coffee and a sandwich, but I can't eat anything. My stomach feels like it's full of rocks. The next morning, I arrive early and see the black sedan parked in its usual spot across from the school. I walk closer than I ever have before, and notice the driver is a middle-aged man in a suit who watches students arriving, but writes things down in a notebook. When he sees me looking, he starts his engine and drives away, which somehow makes it worse. I memorize as much as I can about the car before it disappears. Dark tinted windows, no front license plate, a small dent on the passenger side door. The sedan turns left at the intersection and I lose sight of it. My hands are cold even though it's not that chilly outside. I walk into school trying to act normal. During homeroom, I pull up an old group photo from last year's yearbook committee that shows all 5 of the missing senior girls standing together at a pep rally. I pass my phone around quietly asking if anyone remembers them. My classmates just look confused and say they don't recognize any of those faces. The isolation of being the only one who remembers makes me feel like I'm losing my mind. I point at each girl in the photo and say their names. Jessica, Morgan, Ashley, Brianna, Kayla. I describe things they did last year, projects we worked on together, events they attended. My classmates stare at me like I'm making it all up. One guy asks if this is some kind of joke. Another girl says she's never seen those people before in her life. I zoom in on the photo to show their faces more clearly. The yearbook committee logo is visible in the background, proving this photo was taken at our school. But nobody remembers them. Nobody. Between classes, Lila and I huddle in a bathroom stall and make a plan for if my name actually disappears from the system tomorrow. She'll immediately post all our evidence from her personal accounts with timestamps proving I existed as a student here. We agree on a code word she can text me if something happens, and I need to get off campus immediately. The code word is library books, because it sounds normal enough that nobody would question it. Lila programs her phone to send an automatic alert to 3 different email addresses if she texts that phrase. We test it twice to make sure it works. I give her my parents' phone number and my home address in case she needs to reach me outside of school. We synchronize our phones so we both have the same timestamps on everything. During my free period, I sneak back to the theater tech booth and check the security footage again. I look specifically at the main entrance cameras from this week. There are fresh edits around the time students would arrive and leave. Whole chunks of footage are just gone or replaced with loops. Someone is actively scrubbing the recordings to hide what's happening to students. I find a clip from Monday morning that shows students walking in, but the timestamp jumps forward 20 minutes with no transition. The same students appear in the same positions like the video was paused. Another clip from Wednesday afternoon cuts out completely for an hour. When it comes back, the hallway is empty, but it should have been full of students. I download as many unedited clips as I can find to a flash drive I brought from home. The files are huge and take forever to copy. I go to the main office during mid-morning and calmly ask why my locker was deactivated without warning. The secretary looks at her computer and tells me I was never assigned that locker number. She shows me a screen that lists a completely different locker. I show her the assignment email from August on my phone, but she just says their system must be correct, and I should use the new locker. She prints out a new locker assignment slip with number 189 and a combination I've never seen before. I take the slip even though I know my real locker is 247. I walk to locker 189 and try the combination. It opens to an empty space that smells like metal and dust. Someone else's old stickers are still stuck to the inside of the door. I walk back to locker 247 where all my stuff actually is. My combination still works. My books and jacket are right where I left them this morning. But according to the school system, this locker doesn't belong to me anymore. At lunch, I grab my backpack and walk outside to the far corner of the campus where hardly anyone sits. I pull out my phone and turn on the hotspot, because I don't trust the school Wi-Fi anymore. My fingers shake as I create a brand new Gmail account with a username that has nothing to do with my real name. I start forwarding every screenshot and photo I've taken to this new email address. The trophy case photos, the binder pages, the security footage clips, the list of missing students, everything. I type Lila's personal email address into the CC field and hit send on batch after batch of evidence. Then I screenshot the sent messages showing the timestamps and recipients. I save those screenshots to 3 different cloud accounts. The whole time I keep looking up from my phone expecting a teacher or administrator to walk over and demand to know what I'm doing. My sandwich sits untouched in my lap. Every time someone walks past my bench, my heart jumps into my throat. I send one more batch of emails and then close everything out and delete my browser history, even though I know that probably doesn't matter if they're monitoring the network. The bell rings for 5th period and I stuff my phone in my pocket and head to class trying to look normal even though my hands won't stop shaking. After school, I practically run to the library. I need to see those binders again. I need to photograph more pages and document everything before they disappear. I push through the doors and head straight to the back corner where Lila found them this morning. The shelf is completely empty. Not just the binders, but everything that was on that entire section of shelving. I check the shelf above it and the shelf below it thinking maybe someone moved them. Nothing. I walk along the nearby shelves scanning every spine and checking behind books. The binders are gone. My chest gets tight and I can't breathe right. I sit down on the floor right there in the aisle because my legs feel wobbly. The panic hits me so hard that black spots swim in my vision. I put my head between my knees and try to count my breaths like my counselor taught me. Someone removed those binders in the last 6 hours. They knew we found them. They knew we were looking. I'm sitting there trying not to completely lose it, when I notice a book cart pushed against the wall about 10 feet away. There's something dark shoved under the bottom shelf of the cart like someone hid it in a hurry. I crawl over on my hands and knees and pull it out. It's one of the black binders. A yellow sticky note is stuck to the cover. The handwriting is small and neat and says, "Archives, ask quietly," but I don't recognize who wrote it. I look around to make sure nobody's watching, and then I shove the binder into my backpack and zip it closed. My heart is pounding, so hard I can hear it in my ears. Someone left this for me. Someone who knows what's happening and wants to help but can't do it openly. I walk to the circulation desk where Natalie Corey is scanning returned books. She's worked at the school library for years, and she's always been nice to me. I wait until the other students near the desk walk away, and then I lean in close and quietly ask her about the archives. She looks at me for a really long moment. Her expression doesn't change, but something flickers in her eyes. Then she says loudly that she doesn't know what I'm talking about, and the library doesn't have any special archives. But as she turns away, she leans in for just a second and whispers so quietly, I almost miss it. Check microfilm. 1968 reorganization. Then she walks away to help another student like nothing happened. My hands are shaking again as I head toward the back corner of the library where the old microfilm reader sits. I spend the next hour scrolling through ancient school board meeting minutes from 1968. The microfilm is scratchy and hard to read, and I have to squint at the tiny text. Most of it is boring stuff about budgets and construction projects. But then I find a section about forming something called a continuity committee. The language is super vague and full of weird phrases like standardize institutional records, and maintain consistent branding across transitions, and ensure smooth continuity of operations. It doesn't say what transitions they mean or why they need to standardize records. But the fact that this committee existed back in 1968 means this has happened before. This isn't new. They've been doing this for decades. I take photos of every page that mentions the continuity committee with my phone. My eyes hurt from staring at the microfilm screen, but I keep scrolling until the library closes. That night, I can't sleep. I sit at my desk with my laptop and start setting up automated systems. I create triggers that check the school database every single hour to see if my student ID number is still active. If anything changes or if my ID gets deleted, the system will automatically send everything we've collected to a list of email addresses. I add the local newspaper, the school board members, the state education department, a few education reporters whose names I found online. I test it 3 times to make sure it works. Then I set up a second backup system that does the same thing but checks every 2 hours just in case the first one fails. By the time I'm done, it's past 2 a.m. and my eyes are burning. I finally fall asleep at my desk with my head on my folded arms, feeling slightly less helpless because at least now there's a plan. The next morning, I get to the school early like always and walk up to the front entrance. I pull out my ID card and scan it at the reader like I do every single day. The machine beeps red. The screen says ID not recognized. I try again, thinking maybe I didn't hold it close enough. Same thing. Red beep. ID not recognized. My hands start shaking. I try a third time. Nothing. Other students are pushing past me to get inside and someone bumps my shoulder. A security guard I don't recognize waves me through impatiently and says the scanners have been glitchy all morning. I walk through the doors, but I know the scanners aren't glitchy. My ID stopped working because they deactivated it in the system. It's starting. Whatever they marked in that binder for today is actually happening. First period hasn't even started when my name comes over the intercom. Report to the main office immediately. My stomach drops. I grab my backpack and walk down the hallway trying to look calm even though I feel sick. When I get to the office, there's a woman sitting in the principal's chair that I've never seen before. She's wearing a gray suit and her hair is pulled back tight. She smiles at me, but it doesn't reach her eyes. She introduces herself as the acting administrator and says there's been an enrollment audit. There are some problems with my records that need to be fixed. She keeps using words like discrepancies and inconsistencies. She says we need to resolve this today. The way she looks at me makes my skin crawl. Everything about this feels wrong. I sit down in the chair across from her desk and try to keep my face blank. While I'm sitting there trying not to panic, my phone buzzes in my pocket. I pull it out and see 3 texts from Lila. She's seeing weird changes in the student portal. 3 sophomores and 2 juniors all got moved to completely different classes in the last hour. No explanation, no notification, just sudden schedule changes. She sends me screenshots showing the before and after. The pattern is getting faster. It's not just me anymore. They're doing this to multiple students at the same time. I put my phone back in my pocket and the acting administrator is staring at me. She asks if everything is okay. I tell her everything's fine. During my free period, I head straight to the theater tech booth. I need to see what's happening in real time. I log into the security system using the password I know and start looking for camera feeds. Most of them are the same edited versions I've seen before. But then I find something I didn't notice last time. There's an unlisted feed that's not part of the main menu. It's a direct network stream showing the hallway outside the main office. When I open it, the footage is completely different. No gaps, no edits, just raw continuous video. This must be the backup feed that Evan told me about. I write down the feed address in my notebook. Then I plug in an external hard drive I brought from home and start downloading the raw footage. The files are huge and the download bar moves slowly. My hands are sweating the whole time. I keep checking the door expecting someone to walk in and catch me. The download hits 47%, then 63%. I watch the raw footage playing on screen showing students and teachers walking past in real time. This is proof. This is actual evidence of what the hallways really look like before they edit everything out. The download bar hits 89%, and I'm checking the door every few seconds expecting someone to walk in. At 94%, I hear footsteps in the hallway, and I yank the external drive out even though the transfer isn't done. I shove the drive in my backpack and close all the windows on the computer screen just as the door opens. It's just a student looking for the drama club sponsor. I tell them I haven't seen anyone, and they leave. My hands won't stop shaking as I pack up my stuff and get out of there. Between classes, I see Carlos Melton in the hallway near his classroom, and I walk up to him trying to look normal. I ask him quietly if he's noticed anything strange happening at the school lately. He stops mid-sentence like someone hit pause on him. His eyes go up to the ceiling camera mounted in the corner, and he stares at it for a second. Then he looks back at me and says very carefully that he can't help me with that. The way he says it makes my stomach drop. His eyes look scared. Not confused or annoyed, but actually scared. He walks into his classroom and closes the door before I can say anything else. The teachers know something. They have to. But they're too afraid to talk about it. At lunch, I walk past the main hallway trophy case on my way to meet Lila, and I stop so fast that someone behind me almost runs into me. Every single trophy and plaque has been replaced again. I was here yesterday morning, and these are completely different. The new ones show state championships from 2003 and 2007 and 2015. Years that don't match our school's actual history. Names of students I've never heard of. A volleyball championship for a team that doesn't exist. I pull out my phone and start taking photos of everything. I turn on the timestamp feature so the photos show the exact date and time. Then I pull up the pictures I took last month for the school newspaper when I was doing a feature on athletics. Completely different trophies. Different years. Different names. Different sports. Someone replaced all of them overnight and no one else seems to notice or care. Students walk past the case without even looking. I take more photos, making sure to capture every plaque and every trophy from multiple angles. After school, I go straight home instead of staying for newspaper club. I sit at my desk and create a new email account using a fake name and a VPN so it can't be traced back to me. I search for Caitlin Huff and find her reporter profile on the local news website. She covers education and school board meetings. I've read some of her articles online before. I write an email keeping it vague but including the important parts. Unexplained student disappearances, systematic records manipulation, security footage being edited. I don't give my name or my school's name. I just say it's happening at a local high school and someone needs to investigate. I don't expect her to respond, but I need someone outside the school to know something is wrong. I hit send and then clear my browser history. That evening, I go back to the library right before it closes to look at the microfilm again. I'm sitting at the reader scrolling through old board meeting minutes when Natalie Corey walks past my table. She doesn't look at me, but she drops a folded piece of paper next to my backpack. I don't pick it up right away. I wait until she's gone, and then I grab it and shove it in my pocket. I pack up my stuff and leave. When I get to my car, I unfold the paper. There's a phone number written in pen and the words, "District vendor off campus, only careful." She's risking her job to help me. I need to be smart about how I use this. I drive home and I'm sitting in my room doing homework when my phone buzzes with a text from a number I don't recognize. The message says, "I saw you in archives. Meet public well lit. 20 minutes maximum." Then it gives me the address of a cafe downtown and says to be there in 30 minutes. My heart starts racing. This could be a trap, but it could also be someone who wants to help. I grab my car keys and tell my parent I'm meeting Lila to study. They barely look up from their phone. I drive to the cafe and park on the street where there are lots of other cars. The cafe is busy and loud with people talking and the espresso machine hissing. A guy in his 30s wearing a polo shirt with a tech company logo waves me over to a corner table. He introduces himself as Evan Burke and says he's a contractor who helps maintain the district's student information system. He looks nervous. His eyes keep moving around the cafe like he's checking to see if anyone is watching us. He explains that the Continuity Pilot is a program to standardize records and branding across schools. It's supposed to improve metrics and reduce liability exposure for the district. He stirs his coffee but doesn't drink it. I ask him what the words in the binder mean. He leans forward a little and explains in a low voice. Removed means students were transferred to off-books alternative programs that don't show up in official enrollment counts. Adjusted means staff members had behavior notes or complaints scrubbed from their files. Replaced means a student's enrollment record will be substituted with someone else's to maintain consistent numbers for state reporting. My stomach feels sick. He keeps talking and tells me the real reason they scrub the security camera footage. It's to avoid liability for incidents that happen on campus. If there's no video evidence of bullying or fights or safety issues, then the district can't be sued or investigated. Requested Reds is on Spotify now. Check out link in the description or comments. The whole system is designed to protect the institution by erasing anything that makes them look bad. I ask him how to find the raw footage before it gets edited. He pulls a napkin from the dispenser and writes down a file naming convention. He says the unedited files are kept on a backup server for 72 hours before being permanently deleted. Then he crumples the napkin and pushes it across the table. He stands up and walks out without looking back. I sit there for a minute trying to process everything he just told me. Then I grab the napkin and leave. On my drive home, I'm going through a residential area when I notice a black sedan 3 cars back. My pulse spikes. I text Lila our code word. She texts back immediately asking if I'm okay. I tell her to meet me at the intersection near her house and we split up taking different routes to test if the sedan is really following me. It stays behind me for 2 more blocks and then suddenly turns off onto a side street. I keep driving, but I'm checking my mirrors constantly. The fact that it turned off somehow makes me more scared than if it had kept following. They know where I live. They know my route. They're watching me and they want me to know it. I get home around 8 p.m. and find my parent pacing in the kitchen with their phone pressed to their ear. Their face looks tight and worried in a way that makes my stomach drop. They hold up one finger asking me to wait while they finish the conversation. I hear them saying things like, "I understand," and "we'll discuss it," in that strained, polite voice they use when they're actually upset. When they finally hang up, they turn to me with this confused expression. The school called about an hour ago, suggesting I might be better served at an alternative placement site. My parent repeats what the caller said almost word for word, like they're still trying to make sense of it. Apparently, I'm struggling with the academic environment, and they want to discuss options for my success. My parent looks at me and asks if something happened at the school that I didn't tell them about. I shake my head because my grades are fine and I haven't been in any trouble. They seem genuinely confused about why the school would make this call out of nowhere. I tell them I need to make a phone call and I'll explain everything after. I go to my room and close the door and immediately call Lila. She picks up on the first ring and I can hear the TV playing in the background at her house. I tell her what just happened with the school calling my parent, and she goes quiet for a second. Then she says we need to talk this through properly and asks if I can stay on the line for a while. We end up talking for almost 2 hours with her voice staying steady and logical, while mine keeps breaking every time I try to explain how scared I am. She walks me through everything methodically like she's making a checklist. First, we need to file a formal complaint with the state education department, because what they're doing has to violate some kind of policy. Second, we should tip off the teachers' union about the staff record tampering since that affects their members. Third, I should sign up to speak at the next school board meeting to get this on public record. Fourth, we need to prepare a full data dump to send to media outlets if things get worse or if they try to force me out. She says we should treat this like we're building a legal case even though we're just students. Having an actual plan laid out in steps makes me feel slightly less powerless. By the time we hang up, it's past 10 p.m. and I feel calmer but exhausted. I should go to sleep, but instead I open my laptop and pull up the file naming convention that Evan wrote on the napkin at the cafe. My hands are shaking a little as I navigate to the school's network login page. I use the tech booth credentials I'm not supposed to have and access the backend system where the security files are stored. It takes me almost 20 minutes to figure out the directory structure, but eventually I find the raw logs that haven't been edited yet. I start downloading footage from the past month using a script to grab everything automatically. The files are huge and my internet connection is slow, so I just let it run while I watch the progress bar creep forward. Around midnight, I start scrubbing through some of the footage that's already downloaded. I find clips from 3 weeks ago showing students walking into the main office during class time, and then the timestamp jumps forward by exactly 40 minutes with those same students nowhere in the footage. The missing time ranges line up exactly with when students disappeared from the school records according to the dates in the binders. I check 5 different instances, and every single one has the same pattern. The gaps aren't random glitches or technical problems. Someone is deliberately hiding specific moments when students were pulled from class or left campus. I keep downloading until 3 a.m. when my laptop finally finishes grabbing everything. I back it all up to 3 different cloud drives and an external hard drive before I let myself fall asleep at my desk. The next morning, I drag myself out of bed feeling like I got hit by a truck. My eyes are burning and my head hurts, but I force myself to get ready for school. First period is English, and I'm trying to focus on the lesson when the intercom crackles, and the secretary's voice calls my name asking me to report to the main office. My heart starts pounding as I pack up my stuff and walk down the empty hallway. When I get to the office, Cassie Malhotra is waiting for me with a folder in her hands. She smiles and gestures for me to sit down in the chair across from her desk. She opens the folder and slides a form across the desk toward me. It's labeled Voluntary Withdrawal in big letters at the top. She explains in this sweet voice that if I sign it now, I can avoid transcript complications and transfer smoothly to a more appropriate learning environment. She keeps using phrases like, in your best interest, and better fit for your needs, while tapping her pen against the form. Her voice sounds like honey, but her eyes are cold and calculating. I realize as I'm sitting there that she's done this exact same thing to dozens of students. This is a script she's practiced. The form probably goes into a file, and then my name gets marked as removed, and that's it. I'm erased from the system just like the 5 senior girls. I keep my hands in my lap so she can't see them shaking. I tell her I need to discuss this with my parent first before I sign anything. Her smile gets a little tighter and she says, of course, but we should really handle this today to avoid any delays. I repeat that I need to talk to my parent and I'm not signing anything right now. She closes the folder and says she'll schedule a meeting with my parent for later this week. I stand up and walk out of her office where Lila is waiting on the bench outside. As soon as I say the word appropriate, she taps her phone screen. We set up an automated system last night that triggers when I text her that specific keyword. Within seconds, copies of everything we've collected are being sent to Roger Cartwright at the State Education Department and Caitlin Huff at the newspaper. The emails go out with all our documentation, the photos of the binders, the security footage, the screenshots of the changing website. Everything we have is now in the hands of people who might actually be able to do something about it. By second period, I get called back to the office over the intercom. This time, Cassie isn't smiling at all. She informs me that I'm being temporarily suspended for unauthorized network access and misuse of school technology systems. She hands me a suspension letter that's already been printed and signed. The letter says I accessed secure systems without permission and violated the acceptable use policy. She tells me I need to leave campus immediately, and I'm not allowed back until the suspension is resolved. My face feels hot as I walk out of the office with the letter in my hand. Other students are passing between classes, and they all stare at me like I'm in trouble. I feel humiliated walking out of school in the middle of the day carrying my backpack, but I'm also angry enough that my hands stop shaking. They're suspending me because they know I found the evidence and they're trying to shut me up before anyone else sees it. When I get home, my parent is already there waiting for me. They must have gotten a call from the school because they're standing in the kitchen with their arms crossed looking furious. They ask me what I did to get suspended and why I'm causing problems at the school. Their voice is loud, and I can tell they're embarrassed that the school called them at work. I don't say anything at first. I just go to my room and grab my laptop and bring it back to the kitchen table. I open all the files and show them everything. The photos of the binders with my name marked for replacement. The security footage showing students disappearing, the list of 15 missing students, the screenshots of the website changing. I walk them through it all methodically the way Lila taught me. They stare at the screen for a long time without saying anything. Then my phone rings and it's Lila calling. She asks if she can talk to my parent and I hand over the phone. Lila explains that her aunt Elena Temple works with the teachers union and knows how to fight school districts. She says Elena can help us figure out what to do next. My parent listens, and their expression slowly changes from angry to concerned. When they hang up, they tell me they're sorry for yelling and they should have listened to me sooner. That evening, Elena calls our house phone and my parent puts her on speaker. She has this calm, professional voice that makes me feel like maybe an actual adult is taking this seriously. She listens to everything we tell her and takes notes. I can hear her typing on the other end. She asks specific questions about dates and times and exact wording from the forms Cassie tried to get me to sign. She asks if we have copies of all the communications from the school, and we tell her yes. She explains that we need to document every single interaction from this point forward. Every phone call, every email, every letter. She tells us to file an urgent complaint with Roger Cartwright at the state education office first thing tomorrow morning. She says we also need to prepare to appeal the suspension through official channels, and she can help us write the appeal letter. Her calm competence makes me feel like maybe adults can actually help instead of just making things worse. She says she'll call us back tomorrow after she's had time to review everything we sent her. When we hang up, I feel a little bit of hope for the first time in days. Lila comes over later that evening with poster board and markers and printed screenshots. We spread everything out on my bedroom floor and start building a detailed timeline. We write dates across the top of the poster board and start placing events underneath them. Trophy case changes on this date, website edits on that date, students disappearing on these dates. We draw lines connecting related events with different colored markers. The Spanish teacher acting strange connects to the adjusted notation in the binder. The 5 senior girls disappearing connects to the removed entries. My locker getting deactivated connects to the system changes. We print out screenshots with timestamps and tape them to the board under the relevant dates. Seeing it all laid out visually makes the pattern impossible to ignore. This isn't random. This isn't a coincidence. Someone has been systematically changing records and removing students for weeks, and they've been covering their tracks the whole time. Late that night after Lila goes home, I help her set up the anonymous post from my laptop. We create a burner account on a local community forum where parents talk about school issues. We write up a summary of everything that's happened, but we keep our names out of it. We include enough detail to be credible, like specific dates and the names of missing students, but we don't mention the binders or the security footage because we don't want to tip off the school about what evidence we have. We also post the same thing on a state education watchdog site that tracks problems with school districts. Lila schedules both posts to go live at 6 a.m., so they'll be up before school starts. I lie in bed that night unable to sleep, checking my phone every few minutes. At 6:02 a.m., the posts go live. By 7 a.m., the community forum post has been shared 15 times. By 8 a.m., it's up to 40 shares and parents are asking questions in the comments. People are tagging the school's official account and demanding answers. I watch the numbers climb on my phone and feel this weird mix of fear and satisfaction. We just made this public and there's no taking it back now. The next afternoon, I'm at the grocery store with my parent pushing a cart through the produce section when I spot him. Brandon Koch from the black sedan is standing near the apples wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt instead of his usual suit. He looks different in regular clothes, older and more tired. He glances at me, then walks past like he doesn't know me. But as he goes by, he leans in just slightly. You didn't hear this from me, but don't be alone after dark. Then he's gone, disappearing around the corner toward the checkout lanes before I can even process what just happened. My parent asks if I'm okay, and I nod, but my chest feels tight. The warning makes everything feel more real and more dangerous than it did when I was just collecting evidence from my laptop. Back at the library during my suspension, I'm sitting at a table in the corner pretending to work on homework when Natalie walks past. She's carrying a stack of books to reshelve and doesn't look at me directly, but as she passes my table, she sets down a manila envelope next to my backpack. I wait until she's gone before opening it. Inside are photocopies of what looks like an official memo, but huge sections are blacked out with marker. I can only read fragments. Continuity protocol appears at the top. Further down, I make out enrollment optimization and liability reduction through record standardization. The rest is just black lines, but it's enough. This proves the program exists in writing, that someone created official documentation for what they're doing. I take pictures of every page with my phone and upload them immediately to 3 different cloud accounts. That evening, an email comes through from Caitlin Huff with the subject line interview request. She says she's been following up on the anonymous tip and wants to hear my story directly. I spend an hour typing and retyping my response, thinking through every condition I need before I agree to talk. I'll speak on record if she protects my identity until the story publishes. I need her to include information about all the other missing students, not just focus on my case. And she has to run the piece even if the district threatens legal action or tries to kill the story. I hit send and wait, refreshing my inbox every few minutes. Her response comes back within 20 minutes. She agrees to all my terms and suggests we meet next week. 2 days later, Lila and I walk into the school board meeting together. The room is set up with rows of chairs facing a long table where the board members sit. There are maybe 30 people in the audience, mostly parents and a few teachers. We sign up for public comment on the sheet by the door and take seats in the back. When my turn comes, I walk up to the microphone at the front of the room. My notes are shaking in my hands so badly the paper makes a rattling sound. I start describing what we found. The binders in the library with student names marked as removed or adjusted or replaced. The 5 senior girls who disappeared from all school records. The systematic manipulation of security footage and student databases. I'm maybe 2 minutes into my statement when Cassie stands up from where she's sitting along the side wall. She interrupts, citing student privacy concerns and safety protocols, saying I shouldn't be discussing confidential records in a public forum. But several board members look uncomfortable. One woman in the middle asks Cassie to let me finish. Another man leans forward and tells me to continue. I push through the rest of my statement, my voice getting steadier as I go. After the meeting ends, people are standing around in small groups talking. Carlos catches up with me in the hallway as I'm heading toward the exit. He doesn't say anything, just slips a folded piece of paper into my hand and keeps walking. I wait until I'm in Lila's car before unfolding it. It's a printed list of 17 names, each one marked as withdrawn in the system. I recognize every single one. Students who were in my classes or who I'd see in the hallways. All of them gone this semester. Carlos just gave me proof that the withdrawals are real and documented. Late that night, I'm lying in bed scrolling through my phone when an encrypted message pops up from Evan. He sent a redacted audit schedule through some secure app I had to download. The schedule shows that tomorrow the district is planning something called a building-wide data synchronization. The notes say it's to align all records with the continuity system. His message ends with a warning. This is when they'll finalize changes and purge backup files. We have less than 24 hours before evidence disappears permanently. I screenshot everything and send copies to Lila, then lie awake for hours trying to figure out what we can possibly do in one day. The next morning, I wake up to a direct message on social media from someone named Gracelyn Boyer. She says she's the parent of one of the missing senior girls. Her daughter was offered a placement at an alternative program before vanishing from the school records completely. The family has been trying to get answers for weeks, but the district keeps giving them different explanations. Reading her message makes me feel sick because this isn't just about databases and records anymore. This is happening to real families who are desperate and confused and getting stonewalled by the same people who are supposed to help them. I arrive at the school that morning to find workers in the main hallway installing new signs. The logo is slightly different. The colors shifted just enough that you'd only notice if you were looking for it. Over the intercom, the principal announces that today is rebranding day to celebrate improvements from the pilot program. Students walk past the changes barely noticing, too focused on getting to class or checking their phones. But I take photos of every new sign and logo, making sure the timestamps are visible. During lunch, Lila and I walk through the building with our phones out. We photograph the new trophy cases that were installed overnight, the updated plaques on the walls, the revised mission statement posted by the office. Then we pull up our archive of photos from previous weeks and screenshot them side by side with today's versions. We access the school website on our phones and compare the current version to cached pages from last month. Every piece of documentation might matter when this goes public. That afternoon, I'm sitting in the public library working on actual homework when an email notification pops up. It's from Roger Cartwright at the State Education Investigator's Office. He's officially opened a case file based on our complaint. The email includes an intake number and says preliminary review shows sufficient concerns to warrant a formal inquiry. It's the first time an official authority has acknowledged that something is actually wrong, that we're not just paranoid students making things up. I read the email 3 times to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, then forward it to Lila with a single word. Finally. The next few days, the black sedan stops showing up across from the school, and I start to think maybe they backed off. But then during last period on Thursday, a courier shows up at my house with a certified letter. My parent signs for it and opens the envelope to find a consent form for my placement at something called the Regional Alternative Education Center. The language talks about ensuring my continued academic success and appropriate support services, but it's basically a transfer form disguised as helpful paperwork. My parent reads it 3 times, then calls Elena and says they're not signing anything until she looks at it first. That evening, Lila comes over with a small digital recorder she borrowed from her aunt, and we spend an hour testing it, making sure the audio quality is clear and that it automatically uploads to cloud storage in real time. We practice different scenarios where I stay calm and ask for specific written documentation instead of getting defensive or emotional. Lila coaches me on phrases like, "Can you provide that in writing?" And "What is the specific policy you're referring to?" Her aunt joins the call and tells us she'll be available tomorrow morning with her phone on, ready to conference in if we need backup during the meeting. I go to bed feeling more prepared but still scared, running through the scripts in my head until I finally fall asleep around midnight. The next morning, my parent and I arrive at the school early, and Cassie calls us into her office right away. She spends the first 20 minutes explaining how the alternative placement would be a better fit for my learning style, using words like individualized attention and smaller class sizes. She keeps sliding papers across her desk, pointing at signature lines and saying things like, "in your best interest," and avoiding future complications with your transcript. My parent asks what specific attendance issues she's talking about, and Cassie gives vague answers about patterns of concern and recommendations from staff. When my parent asks which staff members made these recommendations, Cassie says she can't share that information due to confidentiality. The whole conversation feels like a sales pitch where she's trying to close a deal before we can think too hard about it. I keep my hands folded in my lap so she can't see them shaking, focusing on staying calm like Lila and I practiced. My parent asks about the appeals process for my suspension, and Cassie's tone shifts slightly, becoming more formal and careful. I wait for a pause in the conversation and then speak up, saying I want to formally request written documentation of the specific attendance and behavior issues she's citing. Cassie's friendly expression cracks for just a second, a flash of annoyance crossing her face before she smooths it back into professional concern. She says she'll need to consult with the district office about compiling that documentation, and suggests we continue this conversation another time. My parent stands up and says we're not signing anything today, and I follow them out of the office feeling weirdly proud that I managed to stay composed and ask the right questions. The recorder in my pocket has been running the whole time, uploading everything to the cloud in real time. Minutes after we leave the building, I text Lila our code word, and she immediately forwards the audio file to Roger at the State Education Department. She sends a copy to Caitlin too, with timestamps highlighting the parts where Cassie used coercive language without providing any specific justification for the transfer. I'm sitting in the car with my parent when my phone buzzes with an email from Roger saying the recording strengthens the case significantly, and he's escalating the investigation to include formal interviews with district administrators. Relief floods through me so intensely I have to close my eyes for a second. But I know we're not actually safe yet, because the district could still find other ways to retaliate. That afternoon, the district sends out an official announcement saying they're temporarily suspending the continuity pilot program, pending an external review of procedures and protocols. The statement is carefully worded to avoid admitting any actual wrongdoing, using phrases like, in the interest of transparency, and commitment to continuous improvement. Students start talking in the hallways between classes, confused about why the new branding is being paused and whether it means anything for their schedules. I feel cautiously hopeful reading the announcement on my phone, but Lila reminds me during lunch that suspended isn't the same as ended, and the people who created this program are still working at the district office. The next morning, rumors spread through school that someone from the main office has been placed on administrative leave, though the district won't say who or why. I overhear students speculating during first period, some saying it's the assistant principal, and others claiming it's someone from the records department. Part of me feels vindicated that there are actual consequences happening, but another part feels conflicted because someone's career is being destroyed, even though they were probably just following orders from higher up. I think about Cassie and wonder if she's the one on leave, or if it's someone else entirely. The uncertainty makes everything feel unstable, like the ground could shift again at any moment. That same day, my parent receives a formal letter from the district stating that no alternative placement will be processed for me without proper documentation, parent consent, and full appeals rights. The tone is completely different from the previous pressure calls, much more careful and procedural, with specific references to district policy and state education code. My parent reads it out loud at dinner and then apologizes for doubting me earlier, saying they should have listened when I first tried to explain what was happening. I tell them it's okay because I understand how crazy it all sounded, but hearing them acknowledge that they believe me now makes something tight in my chest finally loosen. The following day, Caitlin's article publishes in the local paper with the headline, Local School District's Continuity Program Raises Questions About Record Manipulation. The story frames the whole thing as a metrics-driven attempt to clean up enrollment numbers and improve state rankings, with real students being pushed out to make the data look better. She interviews Roger from the State Education Department and includes quotes from Gracelyn about her missing daughter. My phone buzzes constantly with notifications as people share the article on social media, and by lunchtime it's trending on the local news subreddit. Students who never talked to me before stop me in the hallway, asking if I'm the one who exposed everything, and I don't know how to answer, because my name isn't in the article, but people seem to know anyway. Over the weekend, some of the missing students start appearing on social media saying they were transferred to alternative programs across the district. 3 of the senior girls post photos from their new schools with captions about being confused about why they were moved so suddenly. 2 juniors comment on the article saying they're okay, but their parents are furious about how the transfer was handled. I spend hours scrolling through posts and comments, feeling a weird mix of relief that they're safe and anger that they were moved without real choice. 5 students remain completely unreachable with no online presence or response to messages from anyone, and that unresolved grief sits heavy in my chest every time I look at the list on my phone. I don't know if they're okay or if something worse happened to them, and not knowing feels almost harder than anything else. The following Monday morning, I walk through the front entrance and head straight to the main office where an assistant hands me a behavior contract on a clipboard. The document lists expectations about appropriate technology use, respecting staff authority, and following proper channels for concerns. I read every word twice before signing because I need to know exactly what I'm agreeing to. The assistant tells me I'm required to meet with Arthur Mann, the school counselor, every week for check-ins. Teachers watch me differently in the hallways between classes. Some look at me with something like sympathy, their eyes lingering a second too long before they glance away. Others watch with what feels like suspicion, like they're waiting to see if I'll cause more problems. I keep my head down and walk quickly to my locker, hyper-aware of every camera angle and every adult who might be monitoring me. That afternoon, I start a private journal in a notebook I keep in my backpack, documenting every weird interaction and every time I feel like someone is watching me more closely than they should. I scan hallways constantly, checking for threats I can't quite name. My first meeting with Arthur Mann happens during my free period on Tuesday. His office is small with 2 chairs facing each other and a window that looks out at the parking lot. He asks how I'm adjusting to being back, and I tell him it feels strange. Like everyone knows what happened, but nobody wants to talk about it. He nods and says we can work together to set up some accommodations that might help. He explains I can get permission to leave any class if I'm having a panic attack. No questions asked, just a signal to the teacher and I can go. He also arranges extended time on the assignments I missed during suspension so I'm not drowning in makeup work. What surprises me most is when he says it's completely normal to feel on edge after experiencing what he calls institutional betrayal. He doesn't ask me about the investigation or what I found or whether I regret speaking up. He just acknowledges that what happened was real and that my reaction to it makes sense. Having an adult at the school actually say that out loud helps more than I expected. I feel something tight in my shoulders loosen just slightly. Late Wednesday night, I'm lying in bed scrolling through my phone when an encrypted message pops up from Evan Burke. The text says the continuity product has been officially renamed to something generic sounding like School Sync Pro. The pilot program at our school is paused but not permanently canceled. The company is rebranding the whole system and planning to sell it to other districts using different marketing language that focuses on efficiency and data accuracy instead of student management. His message ends with 4 words that make my stomach drop. They're not stopping, just regrouping. I screenshot everything immediately before the message disappears from my screen. I lie there staring at the ceiling for a long time, trying to figure out what to do with this information. Thursday after school, Lila organizes a meeting in an empty classroom for any students interested in forming some kind of data rights group. She sends out a message through a private group chat and waits to see who shows up. 12 students walk through the door, which is more than either of us expected. 2 of them are sophomores who were almost transferred before the pilot got paused. We spend an hour talking about what we saw happen and what we're worried might happen again. Lila pulls up a shared document on the projector, and we start building a system for tracking any suspicious changes to the school records or technology. We exchange phone numbers and set up a private communication channel where anyone can report something weird without using school accounts. Working together like this makes the fear feel more manageable, like we're not just waiting around to be picked off one by one. We agree to meet every 2 weeks to compare notes and stay connected. Friday morning, I send an email to a civil liberties nonprofit that Elena Temple recommended. I explain our situation and ask if they'd be willing to take copies of all our documentation for their files. They respond the same day saying yes, they're currently building a larger case about student data privacy rights, and think our evidence could help establish important legal precedents. I spend the weekend uploading everything to their secure server, organizing files by date and category. Knowing this evidence will be preserved by people who actually have legal power gives me hope that what we did matters beyond just our school. The black sedan stops appearing completely outside school. For about 2 weeks, I don't see it at all, and I start to relax slightly. Then one Tuesday afternoon, I'm walking to my car, and I spot a plain gray SUV parked in the exact same location where the sedan used to sit. I watch it for a few minutes, and it just sits there with the engine running. I pull out my phone and take a photo of the license plate, zooming in to make sure I get the numbers clear. The vehicle drives away about an hour later, and I never see it again. The surveillance feels less aggressive now, more like occasional check-ins instead of constant monitoring, but I still can't shake the habit of checking over my shoulder. I vary my routes home every day, taking different streets and sometimes stopping at random stores just to see if anyone follows me. The paranoia feels exhausting but also necessary. During a meeting with my counselor the following week, I bring up the idea of dropping my AP history class. The workload is overwhelming and I'm struggling to keep up while also dealing with everything else. My counselor, who turns out to be Arthur Mann handling both roles, listens carefully, and then tells me that protecting my mental health is more important than maintaining a perfect transcript. He says I can switch to the regular history section and still be on track for graduation. It feels like giving up at first, like I'm letting the whole situation win by making my life smaller, but then it starts to feel different, like I'm choosing myself and my limits instead of pushing through until I break. I fill out the schedule change form and turn it in that same day. On Friday afternoon, Lila texts me to meet her by the main hallway trophy case. When I get there, she's standing with her arms crossed, staring at the shelves. The trophies and plaques look different again. Most of them have been quietly switched back to the old ones from before the rebranding, the ones that actually match our school's real history. But there are a few new plaques mixed in that neither of us recognize, awards for achievements that don't line up with what we remember. We pull out our phones and take photos of everything, adding them to our growing archive with timestamps and location tags. The changes are subtle enough that most students walking past don't even notice, but we see them. We know someone is still making adjustments, still trying to shape the official story. Lila and I share a look that feels complicated, part pride that we stopped the worst of it, and part grief for the students who are still missing from our community. That weekend, we sit at my kitchen table with our laptops and create a shared calendar with monthly reminders. We set up alerts to check school records on the first of every month, review security footage access logs, and verify that students who should be enrolled are still showing up in the system. We promise each other we'll keep collecting receipts and staying alert. The pilot might be paused, but the people who created it are still working here, still in positions of power. We're not celebrating victory or pretending this is over. We're committing to something more like sustainable, watchful resistance. We changed something important by speaking up, and we're not going to let that progress slip away just because it's exhausting to stay vigilant. The fight isn't completely over, and maybe it never will be. But at least now we're not fighting it alone. That's how it went for me. But your version's probably way better. What would you have done differently? Drop a comment. I'll be reading through them later. You guys always come up with the best takes.